you're going there when now the connection isn't great. Watch this, look. There's the fire going. And look at the boys who are tramping under the table. We're all up tonight. And sure, it's great. I come out to tell another story because I'll tell you, I've been all afternoon and evening answering messages and wishing people back a Merry Christmas. People have wished me a Christmas. The top of my finger is sore from typing so many messages, and you know, I'm grateful for every one of them. And for all the private messages, I'm eternally grateful. Even though I've sore eyes and I'm tired looking at the screen from it, you know, I never complain about that. Because you see, Christmas it can be a funny time for some people, you know. If you're lucky to have the warmth of a good family around you, it's a very special time. If you're alone, or if you have the misfortune to be in with a difficulty in your family, it can be a very, very hard time, you know, and it can be a very lonely time. And going back to when I was a boy in Tor, Christmas was terrible, and I mean terrible because you probably escaped getting a baiting or something, you know. They'd be drinking and enjoying themselves and having parties and dancing. You'd be more or less left alone, but I'd still keep out of the house. And I remember one Christmas, I'd say it could have been either 73 or 74. And we were crafty, you know, back in them days, before the machines came and done all the damage they done. Buddy, stop it. Before they done all the damage to the land, there was, in any direction you could walk all day, there was just unchecked nature as far as you could see. And in that land of Westmeath, Tor, Westmeath, and Terrors Pass, Ring, Derry, on into Offaly, was like looking at last year's acorns sticking up out of the ground of all the centuries past, right back to ancient man, to the fairy fort. It was an amazing place to walk through. And that's where I went for when I was lonely and when I was struggling, was to go to the fairy bush and the fairy tree. Could hear the underground streams tingling underneath the fairy tree. Amazing, and the spiritual power that's in that land. It's hurts me heart to see what they're doing to it, but what can you do? And I remember if you wouldn't have work, sometimes work could be slack around the Christmas. And you'd be, that age I was experimenting with drink, I was smoking, I was up to all sorts of yucks. And I'd be going down the forestry and £2.50 for a Christmas tree. And just, that was great money. I think it was £1 for a Christmas tree. Oh, and you drag back with a rope across the bog and across with maybe 10 of them. And just you, the tenor, you were elected, like, you know. But here I'm coming across the field with, and they were all heading into midnight mass. Kept pulling this rope with me 10 trees, Christmas trees on the back. Oh, and I'd had a customer for every one of them. Last minute job, you know. And lads on their own, the bog men. Get me a Christmas tree, get me a Christmas tree. And you'd land with a Christmas night. Just you're some yo landing with a Christmas tree, a Christmas night. But they didn't mind, you know, that was the crack. And they were all heading into midnight mass. Because didn't this old farmer come out? I thought, just I'm in trouble now when I crossed his land. big John Nolan, he's a big barrel of a man. But a nice man, but I thought I'd going to get into trouble now. He's not going to be too impressed with me pulling this hape or trees with a rope that was after getting out of the forestry. And he used to wear a fedora hat. Begot Mickey, he said, where did you get the trees from? I says, below at the forestry, John. Begot, he said, would you be able to get me one? Oh, me says, oh, John, I says, I'll leave these at the gate. I said, if a man coming with a car trailer to pick them up, I said, and what did you want? He says, how much is a tree? Oh, say £1. What, for them little oaks? He said, how much would a big tree be? I went up in heights like this. I said, that's going to be a fiver, about one rail up there. I said, it'd be a tenner. Because he said, could you get me two £10 trees? He said, one for myself and one for the daughter. He said, she's above in the house. He said, we've near a tree. Left everything till the last minute. Oh, he went down anyway, brought up these 2 trees, £20 in my pocket. And I had to split the £10 with the £25. I couldn't believe me, though. Oh, that was me elected till New Year's night. Drink was fierce cheap, and I was too young to be drinking too much. I had 2 pints and I'd be mildly drunk. But that wasn't the end of the story. I still didn't want to go home, and I knew there'd be a bit of crack at home after midnight mass and have a few old drinks and a few old friends round and all that. And who did I meet? Coming back from midnight mass, only Hawley. Poor old Hawley, the diviner. Oh, and Hawley knew you couldn't pretend to Hawley. Hawley was a very, very special man, Lord have mercy on him. And he knew I was struggling. And he seen me with the rubber boots on and out through the fields at Christmas Eve night. God, says Hawley. He said, did you hear the match going? I say, what are you talking about, Hawley, the match? Oh, he said, they're out in Jack Fury's field. He says, and they're playing for the Christmas Cup. Listen, he goes, and she said, listen, I could hear this. And here wasn't the bogman, Mick Mooney, running round the field with a flat cap blowing a whistle. The moon was out, we could see the whole thing. You couldn't see the fares, could hear them. This football match going on. Do you know, Jesus, that ended up being the best Christmas night I ever had. And you couldn't write it in a book. And he told me that the fairies used to come out of the field beside my granny's field in the ponds in Rathgarrett. There's a big fort up there, a big hill fort. And he said, they're all coming out of there. He said, and you're in your Uncle Jack's field and Mooney's running out, Mooney's refereeing. I reckon that Mooney had to have a mortal man to referee the game or they couldn't play it. And Mooney was the man. And there I stood at that game. And you know something, I had the greatest crack ever with Hawley and John Nolan. John Nolan came down from the trees. And we stayed there till 2 o'clock that morning. And I walked home, honest to God, you know. I went out that night about maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I felt my soul was down in my boots. And this is what the land of Ireland used to do to us, you know. You went out on it as just a magic, and you never knew what was going to happen. It just happened, and it revealed itself to you, to certain people. And there was people that wouldn't set foot on the land. They wouldn't set foot on the bog unless they were dragged down to it to work on it, and they'd hate it, and they couldn't wait to get off it. And then there was others like myself who absolutely loved it. And you could go out on it, and it's such a spiritual place because you think thousands of years of life took place there. And as Hawley said to me, and these were the stories that Hawley told me on a Christmas night. Like I say, it was either 73 or 74. And he said, how could ancient man be so scientifically clever to build them forts? There was 3 of them built on top of underground streams, and they were all connected by these 3 streams, and they went a mile further to the fairy tree in Burns Field, and they met at a triangular point. And I used to sit under that fairy tree and I could feel the energy of it. He said, you know exactly where to go, you know where all the portals are. He says, you know where the fairies are, you know where it all is, he said, because it's in you. And here we are at 2 o'clock in the morning talking about this. Other people were at home with their children, and other men was drinking through the night and all that, and here we were talking about the magic at this lovely place called Tor. It was unbelievable. And you know something, I felt that night, I was walking home and I felt the happiest boy in the whole of Ireland. And Hawley was it wasn't just a diviner, he could see things, you know, and all he could tell you is that this game was, he said, they're the fairies. He said, they're the Rathgarrett fairies, he said, and they're playing the Rahu fairies. The Rahu fairies is after coming over, he said. The Long Hills fairies, he said. They're all ahead out there. Oh, and you could hear them as long as he was there. And used to tell me to stand on his foot and look over his shoulder. And then I could hear them. Couldn't see them, but I could hear them. I could hear this game going on. And I could see why Mooney was running round and blowing the whistle. Unbelievable. And the stories he'd tell me, they're not that Christmas morning it would have been. Christmas Eve night, Christmas morning. About people asking him he could tell in an old grave how many people was buried in that old grave, so where they would open up an old grave to bury somebody, a new member of that family into it, and a lot of people used to ask him to do that. Incredible man, you know, and in an incredible place on a lovely night of a Christmas night. Christmas Eve night, he should say. Happy Christmas, everyone.